Hey everyone, Eggman here with another video, and today we have a top 16 breakdown for the TAC Oceania Melbourne Regional that happened this past weekend. It was 250 people in person, and it does have this top 16 that we see here today. And we do have the top 16, and we also have the total leader breakdown as well. Hey, real quick, I don't really make it known, but it is a lot of manual work for a lot of this, and I kind of want to show off what it goes to for some of the data that I have to kind of scrape together, and most of it is manual. So for specifically this event, for 250 people, for leaders, what I have to do to find out the exact stats for this one is I have to click here on BCP, I have to choose View List, I have to find the leader, and then I'm going to put it over here on the left. And then I do that 249 different times. Let's see how long that takes me. Hey, real quick, never input a deck list like this. It helps no one. It's obnoxious, and yeah, it helps no one. Don't do this. Done. Just under 40 minutes. So of the 250 people who showed up, we did have 59 Katakuris, 32 Zoros, 30 Law, 27 of the new Dofi, 26 Newgate, 19 Rebecca, 12 Crocodile, the Star Deck 3-1, and then also 10 Nami, 7 Queen, and then 28 in that other category as well. So kind of some good conversion rates for our big three in Zoro, Law, and Newgate, even though they were, not even, 50% of the field, they were able to take over 50% of the top 16. Katakuri was their most represented, but it had a pretty poor conversion rate of only 3 into the top 16 as well. And then also we do have, look at it this way too. We have Zoro and Law about the same amount of players as Katakuri, and they took almost half the pie chart and only 3 spots for Katakuri. So almost twice as much of the representation, or over twice as much, with only about the same amount of entrants. So if that means anything to you guys, Newgate, not as represented, but it's still very present for it as well. With especially since we had one in 7-1 and one of them being 6-2, and then Rebecca had a fairly good conversion rate. Dofi about the same. So I know these are like the 2 leaders that people are using more often in the set, and so I think they have a higher chance of success as well. But again, I do think Katakuri is a little bit finding success just because there's so many people who are on the leader that it just statistically helps it out in that way too. And then so we're going to go over the top placing list for each one of these leaders, but also I did find a couple of these 6-2s as well that were unique. So we are going to go over a Nami list, a King list, and a Smoker list too, which I'm really excited to talk about. So we're going to go into our first place list, and it's going to be Jeremy's first place Trafalgar Law. And, I will say, I've been going over a lot of Trafalgar Law lists. You guys should pretty much kind of know what they look like at this point. At least this top end should always be sleeved up in some capacity. I think the only issue, change that some people have been doing instead of Brook, have been doing Sanji, just because of being able to take cards from your life. It helps you in some of the more slower control matchups when someone tries to starve you from resources. But and then the bottom end is usually where there's more creativity outside of you always run your Trafalgar Laws. But in this one you specifically see Basil Hawkins. I've been seeing sometimes it's good for trading into stuff, and it's a good boss monster to jump into, and then also 8-drop Eustace Kid. And it's interesting to not see Rush Luffy, because I know Rush Luffy is a pretty good target, especially since it's findable off the Nami and Bonnie. But the 8-drop Eustace Kid can still be strong in this meta, even though it was the boogeyman of I'd say set 1, since it was really hard to interact with. Just the fact that you're kind of able to wall with it, and I really want to know their opinion, or what the kind of main matchups and reasons for running this card in general. I think it is obviously so strong, even though Red Rock is popular, and Katakuri runs their 8-drop secret rare that gets rid of this card pretty easily, and even into red, just using an Otama to get it down to a 6K are like a Gordon. I know a lot of Trafalgar laws are in Gordon. I think that's good. So it could maybe be like the mirror match breaker if that's important, if you were expecting a lot of laws. And sometimes, Newgate, it just kind of buys you a turn at times, which is all you kind of need for that matchup. So maybe some combination of that, but I think that's a really interesting choice there. And then also like Nico Robbins, kind of a tech choice too. It's not in every build. So that's kind of how that is. And also the second place Trafalgar Law list, nearly identical. This is Benjamin's list. The only difference is instead of doing the 8-drop big boy, we have the 4-drop Brook from the film. So I think, the more conservative choice, or at least the more common choice, but still obviously doing very good. So congrats to both of our first and second place Trafalgar Law lists there. And then looking at our third place list, top 4. This is third place. This is Jayden's Zoro list, and I will say like Zoro does have like some flexibility and choices for it. At least it's seeming like there's more cards that you can choose from and people are being creative with in Zoro compared to kind of Law being more the stuff that is the same. The only stuff we really do add in red though, and we'll kind of see from the set, is the Table Manor Kick Course, which this is like a good card. The fact that it's a straw hat is fantastic, so you can find it off Nami. You also can find it off your buggy, which is good. And then also you do notice that you have a bunch of event cards. There are a bunch of cards without any counter associated with them, so Table Manor Kick Course, being able to convert those into something else can be good. So it's just kind of a flexible card. The trigger off life is not too bad either, giving something minus 3k, so essentially you get to use it for free, which is really nice. And I think that's something to consider. But other than that, not anything I'd say too different than what we've been seeing for Zoro. Red pretty much had a really good OP02, OP03, and it's seemingly going to be carrying it through OP04 as well. So that is Jayden's list here. And then going to Newgate, we do have Ernest's list for this one, and this is obviously more of the Newgate package and just running kind of like the Ezo, having some Fosses for blocker, and then our top end of like the Marco, Ace, Thatch, and Newgate as well. And we are running 3 copies of the Gum Gum Red Hawk. I think this is a card that's been creeping up in popularity. I'd say like the end of OP03, like people would run like the random 1 or 2 at times, but now people are getting a little bit greedier with 3 or even 4 copies of it. Just the fact that this can be used for removal on like some really easy blockers, like in blue, like it gets rid of Donquixote Doflamingo, like chopper blockers, beige blockers when you're playing against stuff like Trafalgar Law is really important, and just getting rid of those cards, even like into if your opponent just plays a lot of weenies, this is a really good card to get out of those, not only those attacks, but also to get rid of those cards too. So your opponent can play around this card though by attaching more Dawn to cards, but it just kind of forces that kind of weird commitment at times, and it's just a solid card. So I think that's kind of the big tech that people have been kind of on for OP04. Otherwise, Newgate has this. We still have Strawbeard, which one did top as well, and that's kind of, I don't have much more to that. So congrats to Ernest for their top with Newgate. And then next up we have Charlotte Katakuri, which again, a lot of people have been on this leader, and I think it's been moderately strong. I think the numbers of people on the leader itself is helping carrying that in that sense, but just the fact that it's just a very, very strong deck in a lot of ways. So obviously 10 drops great. 9-drop Yamato, I don't know how I feel about this in Katakuri. I don't feel like it's the card at times, but you do see that we're running it instead of like potentially 7-drop Linlin, which 7-drop I think is like only good when you have exactly 7 Dawn, because late game it can be kind of dead in hand, like your opponent's just going to choose the worst one of the 2 for you, and it doesn't really get the value that you want. So Yamato being able to potentially get a heal and pop something is very good. The only issue with it is that I feel like the way and playstyle that you use Katakuri is that you're really aggressive on their board and hitting in their life more times than not. And so when you play Yamato on curve, it can only really pop like a 2 or 3 drop, something like that. So sometimes it can pop like a big 5 drop if you're playing against like Trafalgar Law and you're being really defensive and not hitting into their life. If they have 4 life, you can pop like a Trafalgar Law 5 drop, which is really nice, and heal. So I think that is warranted in the match itself, but sometimes it feels kind of clunky, and it's not being searchable, and like pudding and Paraspero not being able to find it feels kind of bad. So other than that, I think this is pretty standard. I don't think everyone's been using Cracker either. I think that this one's been kind of phased out a little bit. The double attack doesn't matter as much anymore. Obviously 4-drop Sanji's in a really good spot, and just everything else from there. So again, this is Nicholas's list, and congratulations for their top there. And then we also have our Rebecca sneaking in with an X1 record with 9th place. So this is Mitchell's list here. And Rebecca is a little bit of a cookie cutter deck in the fact that you have to run so many Dressrosa cards to make sure that your leader effect works out. And so there's not a lot of room for kind of tech cards because of that, but you do have some choices on just kind of how defensive you want to be, how much removal you want to have. I do like 3,000 Worlds in a deck that does have a lot of ways for cost reduction. Namely, we have Orlumbus as a really big card for that. We also do have like some cards like Tashigi to help get some cards into that range too if we really need to. But I do like that kind of idea. And again, the removal is there. You're trying to just stall out your opponent for a little bit until you can kind of set up an OTK with Luffy. This obviously has some really good removal potential for you as well. And just kind of the new Sabo as well. New Sabo, I really do like this card, and I do think it helps not only this deck but a lot of others. And the cycle of dead cards out of your hand is just really important for that. While also being able to dig deeper and find the cards you really need in a match, and then also like the protection effect and just the blockers. It's just very, very good. And honestly, just like a generically good black card on an odd number like 5 is kind of rare, and so it's very welcomed in this too. So this is the list here. Congratulations to Mitchell for their top there. And then we also have our one Don Quixote Doflamingo into the top 16. This is Xiaoting's list with the deck, and it's a little bit unique in some of the choices. Namely, we do have the 5-drop Trafalgar Law, which I don't often see in the deck, but I do understand why it makes sense. Being able to bounce into our other cards is good. You also do have this 2-drop Trafalgar Law, which I've never see. It is a film card, which is nice, and a supernova technically, even though we don't run Bonnie. But activate main for 1. You may return this character to your hand, play up to one character with cost of 3 from your hand. So being able to play this on turn 2, you could potentially attack into your opponent's one of their cards, and then you can kind of go up into your Nami and then keep your curve. So I don't know. It's an interesting pick in a lot of ways, but I think it can be strong. It's only into a 3-drop, right? Yeah, it's only into a 3-drop. So maybe if you just felt like you need more copies for Brooke, I would say maybe Bart in the same spot. The promo one is probably better, but it also this Trafalgar Law is way more inexpensive because of that, so maybe that's part of it as well. We also do have 3 copies of Sugar, which I think 3 is usually where I see most people. I think 4 is a little much, but just the fact that it can get the rest, and some decks kind of have these awkward turns if you play this out, which is really interesting. 2 copies of Guild because it's good, and then the 10-drop, we gotta run 4 of it, especially since it's not really searchable in this deck, and most of our searches are only film, and the only draw we have outright is Guild. So being able to find this guy is kind of important, and so having 4 is kind of what we need for, even though we don't have a lot of we don't actually have ways to discard or cycle cards. So once we see a card in hand, we're kind of dead with it. So I don't know, it's kind of interesting from this one, but this is the list here. Congratulations to Xiaoting for their finish. And then our last unique in the top 16, we do have Ryan with their Portgas D Ace. And this is an interesting build. I do think that Ace in a format where Law is pretty present is strong. I think that it can have a little bit of issue against yellow at times, but you do have a really good way to go for a Flame Emperor for 2 damage, which can get a lot of, a good impact for you there. So it's I don't know how I feel about it in this format in general. I haven't had a lot of testing personally with it, but I do think if Zoro and specifically Law, if Law is really present, and we do have a good amount of removal because of that, we only do have 2 copies of Fire Fist, which I feel is a little bit on the low side. But if you're able to get that removal again, I think that can help you out in a lot of ways, and help you kind of stabilize against those kind of matchups. We also have the one of Striker to get some additional card advantage if you want to go long, since there are some more control decks that exist here. But I do think there's a lot of big bad bodies that get hit by this very easily. And 8-drop Katakuri gets hit by it. Also 7-drop Luffy gets hit by it. 8-drop Uses Kid, which got first place, gets hit by it. So I think that's kind of impactful too. But this is the list here. Congratulations to Ryan for their finish. And there are unique top 32s. We do have Minh with their copy of Nami. I don't have a lot to say about this one because it's kind of the list. Like, this is understood more or less as the list, the most consistent list for Nami in this format. There's not a lot of changes that I've seen from it. Kind of impactful cards are like the Overheat. I think the Tekken one is nice. The newest card is the Opus, which is a 2K, but also can technically trash cards from hands if you need. Like, if you have just dead cards in hand, you need to get low for like the Deathwink, and then also can search an East Blue type card, which can also be important. If you have just dead cards in your hand, and you need to draw into like a Sanji's Pilaf or into like an Impel Down, not into that. You have that in your hand, you discard it, but also like the Giant Gavel. Like, there are a good amount of East Blue cards. Even just like helping you find your Kaya to just get the additional mill can help you just get to the end of the game. So I do like Sanji. It does whiff sometimes, but being able to stack the bottom 4 or 5 cards of your deck is pretty important in a lot of ways. And then Zeph just for some tempo, and if this hits, you usually have a good chance of winning the game too. So that is the list there. Congratulations to Minh for their finish. And then we also have the King, and I don't know what it is about this format, but like, we've had like two King decks top in like just events that I've been covering and stuff, and maybe not top 16, but they've been doing well. And X2 was a good enough record to get into top 16 as well, so I did want to mention this one. But this is Joseph's list here, and I think the biggest card that I've been really enjoying, but when I've been playing purple, is Miss All Sunday is such a good card for these decks. The fact that not only is it a guaranteed ramp that also draws you a card, so like a lot of the ramp that we see already, you have to like minus a card in hand and then you get the ramp, or like it's not immediate ramp. Like you have to do like a when attacking, or it's usually just kind of clunky or kind of awkward. This Missile Sunday just kind of fixes all that. Not only that, but you do get to draw a card, and then late game when you have like 10 Dawn, being able to play it out of your life and then draw a card and have a 5k out for essentially free is very strong. So very flexible card. It can be stuck in hand sometimes because 5 is kind of an awkward number at times, but and it doesn't have counter, but we can always get out of it with Queen. We can also use some effects to get there, and we have the Gum Gum Jet Gatling, which is great for cycling that as well. Only thing I'd say is that I'm a little bit surprised we're not seeing any of the polys, because I do think the poly can be pretty helpful at times. But we also have like the ulti playing out the page 1, which is strong. We have the Kirishiro, which gets you draw a card on play if you have 8 or more Dawn, which is not too terribly hard to do in this deck, and just kind of everything else for it. So not much more to say. Congratulations to Joseph for their top finish there. And to wrap it up, we have Efthimios, I probably said that wrong, my apologies, with Smoker. And again, Smoker's been kind of like around, I'd say. I don't think Black is doing super good in this format. I don't think like Rob Lucci was doing, showing up occasionally in OP03. OP04, like the only like Black leader that gets seen is like Rebecca, and Rebecca is just not a traditional deck. It kind of just plays by its own rules. So generically, I would say again, like Black's not in like a super good spot in this meta, but we do have like some new cards. Having the Bard being able to be a blocker and a 2K is very strong. I've already talked about Sabo a little bit as well. I think that helps you. And this is a really greedy build too. We have 4 Garps, we have 4 Sakazukis, 2 Ishos, and then 4 of the 10 drop as well. So you're just trying to get max value. You're trying to be like Kuzan is definitely like a breaker against like control decks. Because if this, if this doesn't get like red rocked or something like that, you just get a lot of advantage by getting that removal, and then every removal you get for the rest of the game is just cheaper, which is really nice. We also have like the 5-drop Sengoku, which I don't see this card very often, but it's just kind of like a 5-drop version of the Kuzan 4-drop. It doesn't get the draw, but it does have a counter and gives something -4k, more -4 to the cost. So if your opponent played like a big 9-drop, like Yamato or something, and you had Son Goku on board, you could attack with it, and then you can play Kuzan and you get rid of it for free, which is really nice. So that I see the synergy there if you're really committed to the 10-drop Kuzan play. But I could see this deck being very difficult to play and get very, I don't know, be very bricky because of it too. But that is the list there. And that's going to be it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, if you've made it this far, please consider hitting that like and subscribe button. I make a lot of content for this card game, and it's going to ramp up as we get more events in the next couple weeks here in October, and that's going to be it for me. So again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you all next time.